What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Ian Garry talks about Shavkat Rakhmonov fight. UFC 310 will no longer feature the welterweight championship on the line, but as Ian Garry recently pointed out, it will include a bout between two of the sport's rising, undefeated stars, and that's a damn rare thing. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Initially, newly crowned champion Belal Muhammad was supposed to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov at the December 7th event, but a troublesome bone infection forced Muhammad to the sidelines, and Garry was tapped to fight Rakhmonov. On paper, the bout has all the makings of something special. After all, Garry has gone 15-0 to date and has won 8 UFC fights. Rakhmonov, on the other hand, is 18-0 and has won 6 scraps in the octagon so far. As UFC 310 approaches, Garry's YouTube channel has been featuring pre-fight content. In one video, the Irish fighter outlined why he's excited to fight Rakhmonov, even though the Kazakh fighter has pretty much smashed everyone who's been put in front of him.
Everybody's turning him down. 18-0, 18 finishes. That excites me. That doesn't scare me. That excites me. Everyone in the world thinks the guy's the boogeyman in the division. I'm going to go out there on December 7th and shock everyone else's world, because in my world, I'm going to beat him. What excites me about this fight is the fact that no one has solved this puzzle. No one has solved his jigsaw puzzle, and no one has solved mine. And both of us are going to win there and try and solve each other's puzzles. And I'm excited for that because it's something you don't see a lot in the UFC. We don't have a lot of elite level competition meeting each other at their undefeated stages in life, so I'm excited for this.
Pretty hard to argue with anything Garry said here, right? And while Garry has become somewhat of a polarizing fighter in the last year or so, even his critics have to admit that he deserves props just for fighting Rakhmonov. As the welterweight also noted, not too many fighters are raising their hands to fight Shavkat. But who do you think is losing their zero at UFC 310? Rakhmonov or Garry? All that aside, Garry's channel also included this adorable clip of his son throwing some heavy hands at Pop.
Come on, dude. Let's go right now. Let's go. Let's go right now. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, now let's get to Jamahal Hill goes off on Jiri Prochazka and Magomed Ankalaev for comments. Both Jiri Prochazka and Magomed Ankalaev have taken verbal jabs at Jamahal Hill as well as his recent performances, and it's clear that the former light heavyweight champion isn't having it. Hill has not fought since this past April, when he was flattened in the opening round by the current light heavyweight king, Alex Pereira. That fight had marked the first time that Hill had competed since he won the 205 crown in January 2023, with the win over Glover Teixeira. A ruptured Achilles tendon, however, made Hill's reign a brief one. Well, fast forward to today, and Hill is now booked to fight Prochazka at UFC 311 on January 18th. Prochazka is also coming off a stoppage loss to Poatan, and the former champions argued that Hill should not be commenting on anything he does since, according to Jiri, Jamal didn't show nothing against the champ. Those comments clearly agitated Hill, as during a video he recently posted, the dangerous striker laid into Prochazka.
Bro, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So we had the same opponent last fight, right? Your last performance, you got dominated and knocked out, completely shut down, completely exposed, right? And then got done bad, bro. You got did bad. I got caught. You got dominated. It's a huge difference. You feel what I'm saying? My man's literally had your ponytail leaning to the left. I hope you wear that. I hope you wear that same ponytail in LA so I can lean that motherfucker to the left right back for you. Like this is this is insane.
Do you agree with Hill's claim here that his loss to Pereira was worse than Jiri's second defeat to the Brazilian star? If you need a refresher, Prochazka made it into the second round with Pereira in their rematch. It was the same in their initial meeting back in 2023. Hill also had some fiery words for Ankalaev, who also has been critical of the former champion. Here was some of what Hill had to say about the Dagestani contender. Mr. Ankle Grabber Ankalaev, whatever his name is, you all know the weird guy that kind of looks like, what's his name, Abraham Lincoln. He just can't stop talking about me, man. He earned the title shot after one of the worst fights of the year. Good on you. You got to talk about someone calling them a bum. Bum is insane. For you, I'm a bum in no realm. We have common opponents, so we can measure the value of each of our games, each one of our fighting styles. Remember Santos dropped you and it went to a decision. You were hugging him and all those things? Yeah, finish that guy. Remember when you got a title shot given when the belt was vacant and you fumbled it? Hill, of course, is referencing Ankalaev's forgettable bout with Jan Blachowicz for the vacant title back in December 2022, which was ultimately declared a draw. While few would likely argue that Hill has a more fan-friendly style, it's not surprising that Ankalaev is likely fighting for the title next, as he's riding a 13-fight undefeated streak. But what's your take on Hill's comments here? And do you see him returning to the win column against Jiri? Okay, up next, Alex Pereira shows off new grappling skills. Everyone and their dog knows that Alex Pereira is one of the most dangerous strikers to ever walk this planet. But evidence continues to mount that Poatan is becoming a far more completed fighter. Before Pereira became one of the biggest stars on the UFC roster, the Brazilian fighter had established himself as one of the feared fighters in kickboxing. Not only did Pereira win titles in the light heavyweight and middleweight divisions of Glory, he laid waste to many notable kickboxers, including Israel Adesanya. Well, since Pereira came up through kickboxing, the narrative has been that Poatan could be in trouble against a noted wrestler or grappler. Pereira, however, has repeatedly scoffed at that argument by repeating how much he's been working on rounding out his game. Case in point, recently Christian Rivas shared this footage, which shows Pereira working even more on his wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Saca los prohibidos, mijo. Sí. Vamos, Mineiro.
Now sure, Pereira was the way bigger man in that sparring session, but this isn't the first footage that shows the feared slugger is putting in some serious time developing his wrestling and ground game. He'll need it if indeed Pereira faces Magomed Ankalaev. A lot of signs are pointing to Pereira versus Ankalaev next, but we're still waiting on a date. Now let's take a look at PFL CEO gives update on Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones. A lot of fans and pundits have closed the book on a fight between Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou ever materializing. But according to PFL CEO Peter Murray, the only company preventing that all-star bout from happening is the UFC. As Ngannou blasted his way to winning the UFC's heavyweight crown in 2021, and after he defended it January 2022, hardly a day went by without talking about a fight between Bones and the Predator. Hype for the bout peaked when Jones announced that he was vacating the light heavyweight title in pursuit of the heavyweight title and a scrap with Ngannou. Well, ultimately, Ngannou never came to terms on a new UFC deal, and he ultimately signed with the PFL. Since Ngannou is no longer on the UFC roster, most people have moved on from the fight ever happening. But ahead of the PFL's latest event in Saudi Arabia, PFL CEO Murray was asked about the possibility of a fight between the UFC's heavyweight champion and Ngannou. Murray was asked about Ngannou fighting the winner of Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, but he focused on Bones in his response. Yeah, we're supportive of it. Jon Jones wants the fight. Francis wants the fight. We want the fight. Our partners here in Saudi want the fight. And so it really comes down to, does the UFC want to step up to it or not? Period. Now, of course, the vast majority of fight fans would love to see this happen. Unfortunately, the chances of Ngannou fighting Jones or Aspinall while either man is signed to the UFC are less than zero. Furthermore, UFC bossman Dana White has repeatedly trashed Ngannou and has even said that he'll never work with the heavyweight again. Following UFC 308 just last month, White said this when asked about the possibility of promoting Ngannou again at some juncture. "We won't be. We'll never be in business together. You can tell. We don't like each other." This goes back to before the first Stipe fight. He pulled some before the first Stipe fight, and I said I'm done with this guy. And then Stipe beat the out of him. Great night. We never had a relationship after that. Further, the UFC continues to be the biggest promotion in the world by a country mile. While this fight would generate boatloads of cash for both companies, the UFC brand has much more to lose than to gain with this fight. From a competition standpoint, the UFC wants the PFL to struggle ratings-wise. If Ngannou were to face and KO Jones, the PFL's audience would unquestionably get much, much bigger. But what do you think? Could we see a UFC PFL card? If the fans demand to see this fight, or White ends up retiring way sooner than most anticipate? Up next, Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili grappling ahead of UFC 310. UFC 310 is right around the corner, and Merab Dvalishvili is reporting his longtime buddy and teammate Aljamain Sterling has all his cylinders firing for his upcoming scrap. The former bantamweight champ is booked to fight undefeated and rising featherweight contender Movsar Evloev. The fight will be Sterling's second at 145, since he lost the bantamweight title to Sean O'Malley in August 2023. Well, more recently, Sterling's camp posted some interesting video footage of the Funkmaster rolling with Dvalishvili. Not only that, but in the video, Dvalishvili reported Sterling dominated him once their sparring session hit the mat.
Aljamain is really strong. It's less than 2 weeks left, and today, this morning, he did bunch of rounds. This morning he did pads with Dennis. He was kicking, and he was sweating a lot like crazy this morning. And now he did a bunch of rounds jiu-jitsu too. He go 2 rounds with me. I cannot do anything. He was on top of me, control me, smash me, and that means that I'm just gonna smash his opponent. Even though his opponent really good, I have so much respect for Movsar Evloev. That's how fight game is, you know, strong guy wins.
Now sure, some will argue that Merab is just pumping up his friend and training partner here, but if you followed Sterling's career, you know that a lot of world-class fighters have been in all sorts of trouble when they found themselves in grappling exchanges with Aljo. Of course, Evloev has not gone undefeated and defeated all 8 of his UFC opponents to date by accident. In fact, his wrestling and grappling pedigree has drawn widespread praise. So there are definitely folks who question if Sterling will be able to put his submission game to work against the Russian. Case in point, Evloev is a significant favorite on the betting lines to win the fight, with odds in the -265 to -285 range. But do you think that Sterling will hand Evloev his first loss? Or will Evloev set Sterling's featherweight run back with another victory? Tom Aspinall gives update on Jon Jones fight. A fight between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall might not have looked like a possibility heading into Jones' fight with Stipe Miocic, but with Jones already back in the gym, it's looking more and more like a title unification fight could be a possibility. In an exclusive interview with Bloody Elbow, Aspinall said that he's feeling pretty confident that a fight is going to wind up happening. I'm very confident that it's going to happen. Obviously, a lot of things I've got to keep under wraps. I've had conversations with the higher-ups in the UFC, and they're also very confident it's going to happen. I don't know from Jon's side, but I know from my side and the UFC side, it's very likely. With the new year right around the corner, the UFC's calendar is pretty much wide open and could be a question of when a fight between the two sides gets booked rather than a question of if. In the meantime, Aspinall recently got some sparring in with Glory Kingpin Rico Verhoeven, who spoke in an interview with MMA Junkie about Conor McGregor's criticism of the sparring footage that was released. Come on, me and Tom, you really think me and Tom are gonna spar for real and share that on the internet? Come on. You've got to be kidding me. But that's the mindset of the world today. They're all like, yo, what's on the internet? That's what's for real. Come on, we're too smart for that. We've been playing this game for such a long time, and that's one of the reasons we've been dominating for such a long time. Because we're trying to outsmart everybody, so it's definitely not a thing we would be posting. We were just having fun. If an Aspinall-Jones fight gets finalized, it'll be interesting to see if Verhoeven joins Aspinall's camp to help him prepare. Jon Jones went off on social media to address Tom Aspinall ducking allegations once again. He responded to a fan who said that success is when he stops ducking Aspinall, to which Jon replied, "Sure, call me duck for the next year. Eventually Tom will lose within the next 2 or 3 fights, and my legacy will go on as the greatest MMA fighter ever. End of story." Then he responded to another fan asking him if he's retiring by saying, "I'd probably vacate the belt before officially retiring. Let's see how my meeting with UFC goes." Jon then tweeted addressing everyone saying, "Crazy how being called a duck pays better than most of you internet tough guys will make in a lifetime. 2 fights in 4 years and still one of the biggest names in the sport? That's not ducking, that's winning. God's blessings hit different. Stay mad." Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev next. Dricus du Plessis is taking a pretty unique approach to training as of late. While the expectation is that DDP will defend his title against Sean Strickland next, the champion knows that Khamzat Chimaev is waiting in the wings for his own crack at the title. And from the looks of things, he's preparing for either contender. According to CIT Performance Institute, where the champion trains, he's making his training partners grow beards and yell, "I everybody," before sparring sessions to get him ready for a potential fight with Chimaev. Chimaev is also hard at work in the gym training in anticipation of a title fight after his win over Robert Whittaker in Abu Dhabi, which left many fans calling for him to get the next crack at the title. Given that, DDP's recent decision to have his training partners grow out beards, and the fact that the champ wants that fight over a rematch with Strickland, only time will tell how things will play out with the 185-pound title picture. Alex Pereira fired back at Jamahal Hill on Twitter by writing, "Calm down, my son, pass this test and dad will give you a second chance," while also sharing a picture of Jamahal Hill facing off against Jiri Prochazka. Jamahal responded to this comment by saying, "Beat it, funny how you rushed a little blocked Roundtree and dumped Jiri like you were the man, but waited until the refs got in the way to swing at me. You will see me again at 100% soon, and we both know the fear that was in your heart." One fan responded saying, "Hill needs to chill with this false narrative. Pereira only knocked him out because the ref got in the way. The ref got in the way, then Hill threw a punch at Pereira first, then Pereira threw his punch and KO'd him. Hill throwing the first punch means he was ready and was fighting." Jamahal replied by writing, "On camera, he closes the distance during the break, cutting off my right side, and Herb steps behind me, cutting my left side, and says fight. If you do think that plays a factor with somebody that has power, you don't know fighting. Like I said a million times, not an excuse, just what happened. I should not have showed sportsmanship to somebody that had none and stayed locked in my mistake, and it won't happen again."